in a world of labels. Growing up, I was this very young, intense bookworm. You'd think that being a bookworm would be a fantastic label, right? Wrong. It left me ostracized because all the cool children, did not believe in this. In fact, for me, it was so important to be cool. And being ostracized because of this label was not great. So I learned the first act around that labels and what labels can actually do for you. The second thing around that same time when I was growing up was that I was this very dark, Tim, believe it or not, skinny, very skinny, and I wore these very, very thick myopic glasses because I was very, very short-sighted. So if any of you think that this yellow, brown girl, high yellow aspiration and manifestation started today, I can confidently reveal it started many, many years ago. To add to my misfortune, I had a mother who was fair-skinned, a sister who was light-skinned, and numerous cousins who were super high yellow. In fact, when I had the distinct honor to be asked to be a bridesmaid for a wedding, I used to hear them whispering in the background, especially the relatives, because the nucleus family actually didn't really mind. It was the relatives. These relatives are always very interesting. And it was those relatives who would sit down and I'd hear them muttering, sometimes in Meru, which is my native tongue, please can Pati be put in the front so that she can be seen in the photos, okay? Smiling clearly didn't work. I recall one of my most memorable ads, one of the ads that I remember the most when I was growing up was an ad for a skin lightening cream called Ambi. Do you guys remember Ambi? Anybody remember Ambi? And Ambi had this incredible ad because it had this woman who'd come straight up on the screen, straight up, and she would say, imagine I can remember this 50 years later. And she would say, take a look at this face. Come a little closer. Not bad, huh? Now imagine dark-skinned, skinny, lanky, spending days in the mirror saying, not bad, huh? Not bad, huh? Let's get closer, not bad, huh? We lived, as with many, many African families, you always had these relatives you lived with, and for us, we lived and grew up with my mother's younger sister, a beautiful soul, a big heart, and she used to see this thing going on in me. And so what she did is she went and she bought me a tube of skin lightening cream at the grand age of 13, okay? But I didn't use it much. Now, all this now sounds very funny now, and even when I reflect on it and I think about it, it's really funny. But at that time, it was, as you can imagine, earth-shattering from a confidence point of view and from a self-esteem point of view as you grow up. One of the sports I played was tennis. And with tennis at that time, when I used to play it as a teenager, there was no Serena, there was no Venus to bring this new cool avant-garde style which you can wear all sorts of things and cover up and close in and everything else. Tennis, when I was growing up, you could only wear these pleated skirt, which work very well if you have a body of a certain kind. In fact, my aspiration at that time was never mind the label of dark, bookworm, thick glasses, all that. My aspiration was, how am I going to get those nice tapering legs, a cinched-in waist, perhaps a bust, perhaps. In fact, when I reflect on that particular time, and when I look at things today, I sit down and say, where were those heroines and heroes who created push-up bras? I mean, where were they? Where were they when I was growing up? I mean, imagine the difference they would have done for this young girl and her self-esteem and everything else. Because I was so long and thin, there was another cartoon at the time. Cartoons for us were TikTok, so please bear with me. That was a TikTok of our time. And this particular cartoon was of a very gangly, long panther called Pink Panther. So I acquired the nickname and the label Pinky. So they used to refer to me as Pinky. Hey, Pinky, because at the end of the day, my ankle equal to my thigh, to my waist, to everything, and I looked exactly, walked the same, and everything else. So Pinky, another label that I acquired. So by the time I was reaching my higher teenage and getting to university, my self-esteem, my insecurities were at an all-time low. So now, when I'm at the university, first year, a woman approached me, a wonderful woman, and she said, would like you to participate in a competition of sorts, a pageant, competition, pageant. And I was like, okay, all right, tell me more. And she told me more. And she said, if you get through this thing, you're going to go to all these exciting and exotic places. She mentioned London. She mentioned Hong Kong. She mentioned Macau. I mean, where the hell was Macau? Even anybody in this audience, if I ask you, where's Macau? So for me, it screamed free holiday, free holiday, free holiday. So tick. The next thing she gave me as a motivation for this, despite me feeling, really, can I actually do this thing? Can I fit in? She gave me the second motivation. And that second motivation she shared with me was that in doing this, I can shift some paradigms. Big word, huh? I said, paradigms? What paradigms am I going to shift? The first was that you're going to be a university girl doing this competition. First time to have a university girl doing this. And the second was that we're going to have a dark-skinned girl doing this competition. Brain was just going, oh yes, I can make a change in the world. I can love myself for making a change and changing the world. Okay, fine. I only had one question that I asked. And I asked, will there be publicity? And because I think they really needed to convince me, the answer was, no. How many others have you heard of? Of course not. No. Okay. Competition comes to pass Friday. Yes, you win it. Sunday, newspaper. Sunday, front page, newspaper, which was the equivalent of Kenyans on Twitter at the time. Who is there in all her dark-skinned glory, grinning? And by the way, the saddest thing about that time also is that photography was not anything. There were no filters. I mean, the pixels were, so there is that picture of me there. And I tell you, it was something else. And with that, one of my most enduring labels was born. One would think that having labels like this would assure you, build your self-esteem, would make you feel a lot better and greater about yourself. But here I learned one of the first and most fundamental lessons in life. That it doesn't matter what label you carry. It doesn't matter what things are given to you to validate you. If you don't love yourself, nothing is going to help. If you don't love yourself, it's very difficult for anything out there to help you and to move you or to validate you. I would admit that I've had a fairly successful life. I've had a life which I've been blessed with very, very many opportunities. Very early on, after I finished the university, I was recruited and started a career with one of the leading businesses at the time. And here I'll also tell another story. I remember I was recruited at the university. I was one of the few, because they go to the dean and they ask who are the best students and they recruit you and you go ahead. But a few years ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, I met people who were on the panel that did that recruitment. And one of the gentlemen had the humility and the honesty to tell me, you nearly didn't make it. I said, why? Remember, I was the only girl. There were 9 recruits, management trainees in my year, 8 men. I was the only woman. And I said, what do you mean I nearly didn't make it? The one woman on the panel completely vetoed me being recruited. Because in her head, she kept telling them, how could we have that kind of a girl, right? We can't have that kind of a person doing this. But voila, here I am today, right? And so what are the other labels that I've carried? I still hear Patricia of Kenya Breweries, and I'm like, Kenya Breweries, my goodness, after all the things, or EAB, what did I do there? Or I hear labels like Patricia, the great marketer, the marketer. And I ask myself, I'm still trying to figure out what actually a great marketer looks like. And even today, after I've acquired grand labels like managing director and CEO, there are still people who will introduce me in a forum as the marketing director, not managing, the marketing director, because for them, they feel perhaps that is a more apt label for you. That is perhaps who you can be. And I always remember one of the most telling moments for me, very, very, I must say, I still bristle sometimes, and I've learned to deal with it and to live with it. When I was setting up one of the businesses that I did, which was L'Oreal at the time, going to visit this big bank, because we're negotiating a very big facility at this bank. The appointment had been set up for a Patricia with the CEO of that bank. One would assume people know Patricia is a female name, and this particular CEO. So I arrive at this bank with my very, very white male CFO, white male CFO. He was not called Patricia, I promise you. And this CEO does a complete beeline to the CFO. And I'm left standing there, okay. These are the things, and you can imagine what this does to you as you're continually working on building your self-esteem, building who you are and everything else. Have I had some labels that I'm proud of and that have helped validate me, make me feel good? Yes. About 10 years ago, newspaper headline again, so there are some newspaper headlines which have worked for me. There was a newspaper headline that said, Patricia, the queen of multi-million shilling deals. That one. That one is a queen label I can live with any day. So, what is the story I'm talking to today? I'm trying to share that despite the fact that you do many things, you do a lot of things, labels, acquire all these labels, which should validate you. A lot of times they do not. They hold you back, they intimidate you, and they make you feel that you're not good enough. I have had a life's journey of doing all these things to love myself and to show people and to believe that if I don't love myself, it's going to be very, very difficult to love others. From a romantic perspective also, when I reflect on my youth, if you don't love yourself, it's very difficult to really absorb love, right? And in fact, when I got married, I remember, I'll try and look this way as I speak around when I got married. I wanted to retain my names, double-barreled, Patricia Maingi -Ithau, because I thought that would be a sign of independence and self-assurance and prove that, hey, you've arrived, you're okay, you could carry this. But let me tell you, labels, when they hold you back, I reflected on it and I said, you know what, maybe I should drop that first maiden name. Maybe this is the thing that's going to allow me to start a new journey, a new love, a new romance with self. And so double-barrel didn't happen, single it is, and 30 years on, that love affair is still blossoming with self. I talk about labels, so I have to talk about some of the even more interesting ones that I've acquired. Of late, the best one that I've got is Madame. So now I'm Madame this, Madame, is it okay? Madame Director. I'm like, look at the way I'm dressed. Do I look like a Madame? I mean, I do everything to, wear non-age defining clothes. There I am. I've avoided wigs of any form. I mean, how is it I've acquired Madame? But the other ones that I really love, even despite some of those, one of my best labels, which really I cannot leave this stage without speaking about, is the label of mom, mother, and in instances, Trish, all of which are used interchangeably by my two beautiful daughters. When they call me mom, I feel warm inside. I feel good. I feel, my goodness, I'm actually okay. You can love this person. When I hear mother, I perk up. I'm like, oh my goodness, now what have I done wrong? What have I done? What should I not have done? And when I hear Trish, I'm like, oh my goodness, I must have been up to no good. So, it's been a great journey. We all carry our labels. We all wear them. My day job today is around creating labels that people can wear and create relationship with, labels that people come to love and build a lasting, enduring relationship with. That is called marketing, it's called advertising, it's called communications. So this journey of labels for me has done full circle with the journey I've been in my personal life and my day job becoming fully entwined. So as I speak now to the labels, I must admit that having come from the dark one to the SWAT, to Mrs. Ithau, to Miss Kenya, to Madame Director, what has it all taught me? What has it done for me? What it has taught me is that I have to define who I am, not by the labels that I have earned or not earned. I have to learn to love who I am. And without learning to love who I am, it will always be difficult for me to be bigger and better for anyone else. I have learned that you cannot talk about love unless you start with yourself. After all, we all say charity begins where? Charity begins at home. So why did I accept to do this thing? To speak to the engaged today? It's because I wanted to speak to this last leg of my journey of loving myself and what it has meant to be. By the way, I always say you have to be very, very careful what you wish for. Remember, I hated to be skinny and thin. Let me tell you, for 2 decades, I have tried to be thin again. Let me tell you, if anybody could call me Pinky today, I'll be very happy. Please call me Pinky, right? And so, having carried all those labels, the one thing I can say and I speak to as I stand here tonight is that 40 years on, I have come to embrace the one label that has been the most enduring, and one which I hear all the time. When people meet me, they greet me, what do they say? Hello, Miss Kenya. And with that, I have accepted that perhaps these enduring labels that you carry have created a relationship with love, have created a relationship. And really, at the end of the day, relationships with labels is what love has got to do with it. Thank you.